Moshe Kasher will be at 6th and I tonight. He's got a brand new book called Subculture Vulture. Please welcome Moshe Kasher.
Yeah. I want $100. What do I do?
You know what? You won.
Really?
Oh, absolutely, Moshe.
Good. I deserve it.
How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. It's nice to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you back in. Your book's great.
Thank you very much.
It is really, really, like, I was fascinated by the last one.
Yeah.
The Kasher in the Rye.
Not to be confused with a similarly titled book.
Correct.
It was weird. I found out about that book after I wrote mine. So it's kind of a weird coincidence, but yeah.
But like, I remember when we talked about the first one and thinking like, whoa, Moshe has seen some stuff. Whoa, Moshe has really seen some stuff.
Well, that's sort of, I think why I wrote this book is over the year, my first book is all about my like sort of teenage derelict years, juvenile delinquent, for those that don't know, I was like a teenage drug addict, kind of in and out of mental institutions and rehabs and arrested more times than I could count. If you could see me now, I know this is radio, but I don't exactly cut a swath as as a career criminal, more a career podcaster. But I kept getting, it ends basically the day before, the day I get sober, when I walk away from all of my teenage friends and go try to get sober. And I kept getting this question, and I wrote it like that on purpose, by the way. I didn't want to write like a recovery memoir. I wanted it to be like a snapshot of an insane time in my life. Yeah. Right. But people kept asking like, what happened next? And, I started writing this book to answer that question. And yeah, the answer is like a lot, sort of everything else, all of the other parts of my life. When I finally did get finally, it's hard to say because I was 15, but when I got sober, I realized like I have the rest of my life in front of me. I didn't think I was going to live. Right. And I have the rest of my life in front of me, and I want to go grab life. I want to go find out what's out there for me. And I found this insane path of sort of squeezing every drop of fun out of life.
Well, I was going to say there's a couple things that I like the way that the book was done. And you're right, it picks up on Christmas Day of the day 1994, the day you get sober. And it starts with you going, the worst thing about that is New Year's is 6 days away.
Well, yeah, I could feel it coming.
Right, sure.
I was like 1 day sober, and the worst part was, as I say in the book, I got invited to a party. Right. And nobody invited me to parties back then. Like, me and my crew, we were, like I say, like, we were the types to, break into your parents' bedroom, like, throw a keg through your window, call you a bitch, and then leave, so nobody was inviting us to parties. And we did. Somehow, me and my crew got invited to this party in the suburbs, who I guess hadn't heard about our reputation. And I don't want to paint a picture like I was some kind of gangster. I was like...
No, because I wasn't. You sit here and look at Moshe and go, really? No, you're going to throw a keg?
The way I describe it is like... okay, this was also 30 years ago. The way I describe it is, when you're on the bus to work and like a group of like those white boys get on the bus, and like, oh, great, this is my commute. That's us. We weren't mafia members. We were like, we wished we knew mafia members. So I got invited to this party, and it was 6 days away, and it was getting closer and closer, and I had two choices. I mean, how tempting, how tantalizing is a party on New Year's Eve, a teenage party to a 15-year-old boy. Like,
right, who's never invited to parties.
All you want is to be at the party.
And all you've been is a derelict until that point.
And I knew if I go to the party, it's over. I have to restart it.
Right.
There's no possibility I'm going to stay sober, 5 days sober at this party. And I had a choice. I could go to the party, or I could go to this old person AA dance.
Right.
And, that was the choice. I mean, that's not a choice. That's a terrible choice. I mean, a Rotary Club or like a cool teenage party. But I made the choice somehow. I don't know how. Maybe it was just the will of the universe. I got a moment I went to the AA dance, and I found this girl, Rose, who I still know. And we
Do you really?
Yeah, I still know her, and we sat under like a fluorescent light, smoked Newports all night, and talked about how much our lives sucked. And then at 12:01, my mommy came and picked me up, and that was my first sober New Year's. And I thought to myself, this is the worst New Year's of my life. And now I realize, 44 years old, looking backwards,
it was the best New Year's of your life.
That was the best New Year's I was on the beach in Mexico for New Year's. I can't even count how many stand-up shows, where I'm the star of the show. I've DJ'd in front of thousands of people. but that was the New Year's where I like chose my life. I chose my new path, and I said, "This is where I'm going to be. I'm going to put sort of living above partying."
Do you want to? So right now, I got to decide. Do you want to talk AA real quick, or something more general?
Hey, well, you're the host.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to meander too far away. Let's talk AA real quick.
Okay, let's do it.
Because I'll tell you this. So I'm reading the book, and the book is split up. Now I'm going to get right away from AA.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's split up into 6 scenes.
It's 6 scenes. They're the 6 kind of universes that don't feel like they fit together, that if you piece them together, they create who I am.
Right. So it's not chronological. It's not, I mean, it is, but it's not. But it's you essentially walking in 6 different pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
And it does really get you to know exactly who you are, which I thought was a fascinating way to write the book in terms of it being like a memoir.
Yeah.
Of a very different way to kind of lay out your life, where it isn't so much having to worry about this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. And oh, by the way, they're all very serious scenes, if you will, that you were a part of. But the book's hysterical.
Oh, thank you very much.
Like the book is like, don't get lost in all this. At his core, Moshe's a comedian.
Well, that's the thing I always think of, and I don't know if I can say this on the radio, but comedy is lube. You know, like
right? You can say that, but that's fine. But I'm trying to follow you.
Well, comedy is lube, and okay. Now's the part where, but it lubricates all of the hard parts. You know, my first memoir was like I said, it was really about teenage drug addiction, which is not, I wouldn't say hilarious. It's not a hilarious topic, but all of these things, all these scenes that I walk in, and I mean, should I just take you through what they are?
Sure.
They are AA and the 12 steps. I got sober when I was 15. Sign language interpreting and American and deafness. My family, all of my family, my brothers, half brother, half sister, father, mother, aunts, uncles, everybody's deaf, and I spent 15 years as a sign language interpreter.
Which, by the way, I know somebody hears that and goes like, "Oh, that's nice." Like Moshe was interpreting for his mom and like helping out. Oh no.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, no, you did that, but oh no. Oh boy, did you do some stuff.
Well, I mean, I describe every childhood of a kid with deaf parents as a 15-year non-consensual sign language interpreting internship. Like, I had to interpret for my mother's doctor's appointments, her gynecological appointments, which was very fun. Everything where I would show up and there would be nobody there to interpret for my mother, that was my job.
Right.
And then, as I started to get in trouble, there started to be a shift, which is the subject matter of the meeting would be me and my problems. And now I'm interpreting for my mother a meeting about which I am the subject. And then you have to start doing like a kind of a very subtle dance, you know, because you can't interpret the full message because then you get in total trouble. But you also can't be like, "We think this kid's great." So you're like, "Well, why did the Oakland Police Department decide to have a meeting?" Or, you know, like, "Why are we here?" So you got to kind of like, you got to kind of shift it a little bit. Like, "Oh, we think he's, well, he's got some problems, but he shows great promise. He'll be on Elliot in the Morning someday, we think." You know, like, so that was the beginning. And then later in my life, I became a full-time sign language interpreter, like a professional. And
right.
that was a whole other journey.
Dude, when you are doing like sign language interpretation for like porn, like people on like, go ahead.
It's not exactly porn.
Right.
I mean, look, I worked on webcams. Oh, well, that sounds like more like porn. I said, comedy's like lube. Grab your lube and get on your webcam. So for a long time, I was an in-person interpreter. I was a freelance interpreter, and I would be the person that shows up at the meeting. But then webcams were invented and allowed deaf people to make phone calls over the internet,
right.
Which was an awesome thing because it made all the calls really smooth and easy. When I was young, it would be all typed. And so the message would be very stuttered, and and the person reading it had no experience with deaf people, and it would just be a deaf person typing a message, and it was awkward. But that was my childhood. When I would call my mom would call me growing up. That's what I would hear. I would hear an operator's voice on the phone. I'd be like, "Hello, my son." Like, God? No, it's your mama calling. How are you, my beautiful boy? It's like, "Mom, are you a black dude?" And she was. Sometimes she was. But now I was that black dude.
Right.
I was the interpreter, and we would be signing over the. That's why I'm not an anti-technology guy, because
Well, you've seen how beneficial it can be.
Insanely beneficial. You know, like I can call my mom on FaceTime now, or she can call a business and there can be somebody speaking in her native tongue, in her true language that will give over to the person she's calling the amount of linguistic sophistication that she actually has. And so that was me. I was the interpreter, and I would interpret, and most of the calls were banal and very regular, but sometimes, once in a while, yeah, you'd get a great one. There was a call, I think the one that you're referring to, these two guys popped up on the screen, and they looked like excited. And that wasn't a look I was super used to for a phone call. You know, most of the time I was ordering Papa John's, right? They were like excited, and they were like, go ahead, call. So I press connect. And it's just, I'm going to do this for the radio, but it was just like, I realized when they were excited when I picked up. They're like, tons of hard-body babes. Now, by the way, it's much more X-rated than this. Tons of hard-body babes are standing by waiting to touch themselves to the sound of your voice. Press 5 to be connected. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I got it. I go, okay. But then I had to tell them the bad news, which is like, I can't do that. I can't connect you to this. It's like $5 a minute. We don't, like, the FCC or whatever won't allow that. And so they go, oh, no, that's not what we want. No. And I go, oh my, thank God, this is the wrong number. They're trying to call our customer service or Frigidaire, and they accidentally put in the number for this phone sex line. And they go, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. We want a woman to come to our house to have sex with us. And I go, you mean a prostitute? They go, yes, that's what we want. Yes. Do you know somebody? Now, listen, I'm a CODA. That's what we're called, the child of deaf adults.
Right.
And it's in my DNA. It's in my blood from that 15-year forced internship to help where I can. If a deaf person needs help, I'm there. But I am also not a pimp. Like, I just... Even though I would have wanted to be when I was a teenage derelict, I am not a pimp, and I had to lower the boom. Like, I don't know anybody. Maybe Google escort in your area. I don't know. I still don't know if those two boys ended up getting some.
But you know what I like though, when you talk about the being like doing sign language interpretation, and then having family that is completely deaf, is you talk about being both an insider and an outsider at the exact same time. And I guess I've never looked at it that I've not had that experience, so I don't know what that's like.
Right.
But when you talk about like being both an insider and the outsider at the same time, that's a kind of a bizarre thing to be in that moment.
Well, it's a weird reality to be born into a culture where you are fully accepted. Deaf people fully accept CODAs as a part of the deaf community, but also you are a member of the oppressor class. I describe it as like being born white in Wakanda. Like, right. You're welcome, you have a passport, but you can't wear the Panther suit. Like, you're not. So, but that was not the only world that I was born, that I was into, that I was both insider and outsider. The other world is the world of Hasidic Judaism, which right. I was, my father, deaf though he was, when my mom left and became like a born-again Hasidic Jew. And I was a regular secular kid. 9 months a year, I'm in Oakland Public Schools listening to gangster rap. And then 6 weeks a year, I would fly home for my summer vacation where I would cosplay as Tevye the milkman for 6 weeks a year. So that was another world where I'm just sort of, I'm not of them, but I'm not out of them. I'm sort of both. And each of the segments of the book not only is about my time in them, but it gives over a comedic, like you said. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's history. It's a comedic history. You will never hear a history of the Jewish people or the deaf that is quite as funny as this one.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. You know what I love, and there's one part where and I think it's in the second scene, if I'm not mistaken, but the moment that you full time become Moshe.
Oh yeah, that's maybe my favorite story in the whole book.
Is it really?
Yeah, I love that story, and it's true. I mean, obviously it's true, and it's true. It's the only true story in the book. 90% of this, I'm not Jewish. I can say that, but.
But it's during, am I right? It's during the rave scene, right?
Yeah, that is scene 2, which is the rave scene, and an incongruous scene with the first one, which is the 12 steps in AA.
Right.
At about 8 months sober, like I said, I looked up from this sort of shattered remains of my life that I had begun to piece together, and I go, oh, I have to like be young and find fun and have life. And the way I found it was on a telephone pole in the Bay Area for a rave called Cyberfest 95. And I thought, I'm going to that. Like, I don't know why I even had that.
You've never been to a rave before?
Never been to a rave. No, I was, like I said, my thing was like Too Short and Scarface. Like,
right.
You know, but I never even thought about something as soft as a techno party, you know. But I bought this ticket and I went by myself. And I walked into it, and I emerged from my first party as diametrically changed as the 12 steps made me. Raves did too. Like, it made me, softness was what I needed. I didn't even know that. Like, I needed to be like soft. I needed to be in this like neon colored, you know, Jinko jean wearing, like Mickey Mouse glove pumping glow stick universe to crack me open and make me this like sort of softer human being. And it was like healing. It was like medicine. And I was sober the whole time.
Right. Which again, I don't.
At 10 years of raves.
Right.
I became a rave promoter. I became a DJ in the early 90s in the rave scene. I eventually became an ecstasy dealer, which is I think I'm the only clean and sober ecstasy dealer around.
But can I tell you this? This is where I applaud you. And don't let me forget, I have to get back to AA at some point. This is where I give you a ton of credit. Is you are, so you go to this rave party, and again, not because you're drawn to it. It's like, I got to go find something to do.
Yeah.
But you are all in.
Well,
like you go to the first one and you have a great experience, and you talk to the girl and she's like, "What's your name?" And the first time, that's when you go, Moshe. At one point, you're like, I'm standing there, and the next thing I know, I'm jumping. Like, I'm jumping up and down.
Well, that's the problem. When you are a white kid that thinks he's not a white kid, one of the most dangerous situations you can find yourself in is dancing. Because you're going to expose your white boy 2 left feet like very quickly. So the way I would dance before that is I would stand up against a wall, kind of nod, and just kind of clench my butt cheeks to the beat, you know, like there's nobody could see the butt. I call it the butt clench. No one could see that. That first party, when I first walked into that warehouse at the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center in Oakland, California, I walked in and I went from Scarface to Baryshnikov, and one night I was pirouetting, I was leaping through the air, I was like dancing, and this gay couple came up to me and they grabbed me by the waist and picked me up in the air, and they go, "You dance beautifully." And as you know, I'm Tony Montana, you know, so I'm like, oh, this dude's all hugging on me, and who do they think I am, you know? Don't they know? I'm gonna tell them. I'll tell them who I am. And they let me down. I grabbed both of them, pulled them close, and kissed them both on the cheek and said, "You dance beautifully too," and pirouetted out. And in very short order, I burned all of my Fila gear, and I was like in barrettes and glitter. But my birth name is Mark Moshe Kasher. My middle name is Moshe.
Right.
And in the Jewish religion, there is a tradition that the father gets to name the second-born son. The mother gets to name the first, father gets to name the second. And when I was born, my father declared my name Moshe. We'll call him Moshe. My mom says, no. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous name. It sounds like moose. Now, my mother's deaf and has never heard the name Moshe. She wanted to name me Mark. She's never heard the name Moshe. She's never heard the name Mark. She's never heard the word moose. She doesn't know what any of these things sound like. But somehow she decided that made sense, and my name became Mark Moshe Kasher. And I walked through the world with that name. My father never called me Mark. He called me Moshe my entire life.
So even when you were, like, before you announced yourself at a rave, he only would refer to you as Moshe.
That's all he ever called me.
Right.
Yeah. And I hated my name. I never connected to my name.
To the Moshe part.
To the Mark part.
Oh, to the Mark part.
I just never had a connection to it. But, you know, when you're 8, 9 years old in Oakland public schools, you're not going to go up to a public school teacher and be like, "Excuse me, if you wouldn't mind calling me by my biblically mandated name, I prefer that." So I just stayed low. I stayed Mark. But then something terrible happened. In the 90s, Mark became a hip-hop slang insult, you know, like a mark. Like
right. I learned that in the book,
a mark-ass buster. That's what they would call you. And it mean like a fool, like a coward. And I felt like a fool and a coward most of my life, but I kept just going by that name. And I go to that party that one night. This was my second party. This was a full moon party in San Francisco. It was a kind of a legendary party they would throw on the beaches or in fields.
That's right.
In San Francisco area. And I walked down to the beach that night, and
With the ball, the ball was there.
Okay, you want me to tell about the ball? We got to go back. Okay. Now, there's a video game called Katamari Damacy, a great video game. It's a kind of a classic. You play a prince, a teeny little powerless prince, and your job in Katamari Damacy is to push this teeny little ball. And the ball is so sticky that it collects things. It collects teeny little things, pieces of dust and dander, flowers, rocks. It gets bigger. That's the gameplay. It gets bigger and bigger as you advance through the stages. You're now picking up buildings and cars and hillsides and mountains, and eventually the ball gets so big that at the end of the game, spoiler alert, 30-year-old video game, it is used to rebuild the moon, right? It's thrown into the air and you become the prince of the moon. Now, that was me. That was my life. I was like that little prince running through the world, pushing this little ball, picking up things. But the things that I picked up were all terrible. They were all negative. A court case, resentment, a fight, getting jumped, on arrest, mental institutions, Did
you fight a lot?
Oh, I fought a lot.
Did you really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Obviously I only know you as an adult.
Yeah.
I don't see you at all as somebody who would fight.
Well, I didn't say I won a lot. I got beat up all the time. I had a time.
Were you in a fight every week? At your worst?
All the time. I got a story. We'll get back to the ball.
Okay.
I got a story. These are my friends, just to paint a picture. One of my best friends, we were out one night and this new kid had come around. We were all drunk and he was beating the kid up. And I ran over to stop my friend and go, dude, don't beat him up. He's with us or whatever. And my friend's so drunk, he turns around and punches me like 3 times in the face. Me. I'm the guy. This is my friend. And I go, and I run off. And my problem was every time I got beat up, I would cry. The tears were like directly beneath the surface. And I'm like trying to be tough, but it's like the minute I get in, I'm like, why do you do that? And I run off and I go sit in this alley and I'm crying and drinking, and he comes over and he goes, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I hit you. And I go, yeah, you're damn right you're sorry. You should be sorry. And he goes, what? And he starts hitting me again. He beat me up while apologizing for beating me up. These are the people I grew up with. That's why I needed a soft world. These are the kinds of things I collected with the ball, getting beaten up. And then the consequences got bigger that I was picking up in this big ball, flunking 9th grade again and again and again. And it just felt like nothing was going to go my way. Psychological diagnoses, like all this stuff that by the time I got sober, the ball that I had collected was towered over me. It was
enormous.
It loomed. But my job was just to keep pushing it because I was so scared of what would happen if I stopped, that it would run me over. And I ran into the 12 steps and I said, I got this ball. Can someone help? And they go, we've seen this before. I go, what do I do? They're like, stop pushing the ball. I go, are you sure? It's so big. And they go, yeah. We've seen it before. And I go, oh, okay. And I stop pushing the ball and it stops. It teeters. It groans. And then it runs me right over. And I go, ow, that hurt. That hurt so much. And they laugh. They go, yeah, it does hurt, doesn't it? So what do you mean? You knew this was going to happen? And then, but it was there now. Now I didn't have to push it. And I pump some air into my little flattened body, sort of Wile E. Coyote style. And I go, well, okay, fine. What do I do now? And somebody in AA walked over with a hammer and a chisel, and they said, get to work. And so that's what I started to do. I started to get to work on the arduous process of tinking bits of trauma from that ball.
Right.
And so that night at that second party, I ran down to the beach. The ball followed me down there on that full moon party. On the beach, that ball followed me down there, and I got down there. But I was changing. The ball was smaller. I'd worked on it, and I got down there, and my identity was shifting. And I was wearing these big silly pants, and I had bleached my hair, and I was just this new. I was trying to be this new person. I needed to be a new person because the person that I was so diseased and so addled with just violence and anger and psychological problems that I wanted this new identity. And I sat down on this bonfire, and this girl asked, "She's the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." Every woman there, every person there was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. I was like shifting into a new spiritual consciousness. And she goes, "What's your name?" And I go, "Well, it's." And I looked at the ball. I said, "Well, it's." I look back at the ball. I say, "It's Moshe." And that was the first time that I started going by my middle name. And I needed a rebirth. I needed to be the new me. And that was who I was. And then I turned around. I said, "Oh, have you met my ball?" And the ball was gone.
That's awesome.
I look up in the air, and the moon was shining a little bit brighter that night.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that moment. That moment in the book is so good. It is so good. But what I was going to say is, so like just in the whole rave, in the whole scene too, the rave scene.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with whether it's AA or Burning Man or any of the rest of it is, it's not enough for you. And that sounds negative, but I don't mean for it to be. It's not enough for you to just go experience it. Like, you are all in.
Oh no, I want to be a king.
Yeah. Like, it is all to, and so then it's like, then you go and then you kind of start promoting them, and then you're buying turntables and trying to figure out how to be a DJ in them, and going into the chill rooms and like, and you even say the good thing about having a mom that's deaf is she can't hear you mixing music.
It makes the early years of DJing really, really convenient if you have a deaf mother, because that's a rough, I don't know what that's like for a hearing family. I imagine it's pretty rough when they have a teenage nascent DJ living in the room next door. Yeah, you're right. Like, what I have realized about this book is that who I relate to. And the books that I read growing up as a kid were like, they were like Narnia, and Harry Potter was, and Star Wars, not a book, but all these people, these characters that I related to were these characters who felt like they're weak, they're powerless, they're alone in the universe, and then all of a sudden, like, somebody taps them on the shoulder and they turn around and walk through a doorway into another universe. And not only are they in another secret universe they didn't even know that existed, but they're powerful there. They have superpowers there. They're a Jedi Knight. They're a king and queen of Narnia. They're a wizard. Like, that's what I wanted when I walked into these universes, raves in particular, like, but AA2 and Burning Man, which is the next scene, and I wanted to not only be there, I wanted to drink it. I wanted to run it. I wanted to be a person of significance, because I'd like found my people in this universe, and I wanted to own part of it so that it felt like it was mine. So it really belonged to me. And that is what I started doing in the rave thing. I started throwing parties almost immediately. I remember I threw my first rave like 8 months into the scene, and I put on the flyer, dedicated to taking our scene back. I was like, back? I just got it here. Like, what am I talking about? I'm like, oh, it used to be underground 6 months ago when I arrived. I don't even know, but I wanted it.
You become like the king of raves in Oakland or in San Francisco.
I was like, I describe it as when I would walk into a rave in San Francisco, it was like the Copacabana scene in Goodfellas. Like, everybody was just like pointing at me and going like, there he is, that's the guy. And but I wanted to do it too. I wanted to like become a part of it. I wanted it to be in my blood. And I started throwing these huge parties, and they started very small and underground, and then they very quickly mushroomed into this sort of mega consumerist.
Were massive.
Yeah, they were massive.
A couple of things. Number one, I'll never, ever be able to picture you with a Tweety Bird pacifier.
Oh, that's an issue. Okay. The people in raves do pacifiers because, the drug du jour in the rave scene, I don't know what it's like anymore, but I think it probably still is, was ecstasy. Right? And people would suck on pacifiers because ecstasy makes you grind your teeth. And so to prevent them being ground into little rave nubs, they would suck on pacifiers to protect their dentistry. Me, I was clean and sober, so I didn't need one. I just did it because I thought it looked cool. I was like, yeah, this is cool. Now this is cool. This is cool.
Also, I don't know how in the chill rooms, which were like not where the big party was taking place, but it was just kind of like hang out. It was like a little bit of a vibe and a little bit of a scene.
Yeah.
But you described these cuddle puddles.
Oh, the cuddle puddle.
How? And again, and listen, God bless you. But I sit there and go, how does anybody do this sober? How would anybody do this? So you're laying in a pile of women.
How could anybody do this sober?
No, but like in one of them, freaking Yanni's playing.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. The chill room. I don't know. I don't think they still do chill rooms. They might, but I don't think they do.
We should go to a rave.
Let's go. What do you think?
I've never been. I would
love to
take a guy back the $100. Ask him to buy us 4 tickets to a party. They used to do this thing called the chill room, where if people would get a little bit too, out there, and they needed a place to go, kind of like collect themselves, they would go into the chill room, and the music in there, it was ambient music and trip hop and down tempo, and it was just a lot. It was a place where you could go chill and ride your trip out or whatever. And what would happen was when enough people would go into the chill room and they would be sort of inebriated enough, they would reach this sort of critical mass where everybody would kind of like just collapse on top of one another and just, they called them cuddle puddles. And I did do a number of cuddle puddles, clean and sober, but I will tell you, like, I was intoxicated. I was clean and sober, but I was intoxicated on the kind of, you have to have come from where I came from in order for that kind of, I mean, yes, it sounds silly and ridiculous, and the way we dressed was silly and ridiculous, but to come from where I came from and then to find this zone in the like corrugated steel wall warehouses of San Francisco and Oakland at 4:00 in the morning, this like zone of like love and just peace. The rave credo was plur, peace, love, unity, and respect. I mean, I know it's very difficult to respect someone that screams plur at the top of his lung, but for me, it was this like I said, it was like going to a clinic. It was like going to a psychological healing. Like, it was silly and ridiculous and absurd, and anybody looking at it with a sober brain in 2024 go like, okay. But for me, it was like I was getting this like second chance at a childhood.
Right.
It was drug addled and sex addled, and but it also was innocent and beautiful, and it healed me, and it made me the kind of person I described it as. Like, my pendulum started all the way over here, and the raves are absurd, so the pendulum swung all the way over here in order for at some point me to kind of reach the middle ground again,
right, which was Burning Man.
Yeah, much more reasonable world.
All right, let me do this. Let me take a quick break. Moshe Kasher is at 6th and I tonight. And I'm right. It's kind of like part about the book. It's part stand up. It's part Q&A. It's like a whole evening with Moshe.
In conversation about the book, and there'll be some jokes. Sure.
All right. Very good. And then, Subculture Vulture is the book that is out now. Quick break. More with Moshe Kasher next.
Elliot in the morning.
I would do anything to be in San Francisco watching Moshe just get after it right now.
Oh, I love that song. That was my gateway song. 100% Pure Love. I remember it's in the book at an AA dance. They played this, and I started going like, I really do think that is the reason that I went to the rave the first time. It's because I was at some AA dance and I heard that song, and I go, I think I should go to a rave. Like,
need more of this.
It's fun to dance with the people from the Vets Hall and like, former sex workers and men with emphysema, but I think I should find some people my own age, and I really think that song opened the door for my first party.
Do you like writing memoirs?
I do really enjoy it.
Because you'll hear people talk about how hard it is and how painstaking it is.
Well, I have the gift of genius.
Right. Well, thank you.
It makes it so easy. I wrote the book in 2 weeks. No, it is hard. It's hard, but you have to be, it's different than stand-up. Stand-up is a I'm trying really hard not to say dialectic, but stand-up is like, it's a process where you you build over time. You have a bit, and then you add a tag, and then you go on stage, and the audience tells you what you like, and then you slowly over time piece together an act. And memoir is very much more deliberate. You sit in your office and you write, and you have to, when you sell a book, you have like a deadline. And my process was, I would write, and it was the same way I wrote the first book. I would write 2 pages a day, no judgment. That was my process. I would go upstairs, I would write 2 pages, no editing, no judging, no going backwards, just write for 2 pages.
What do you mean no judgment?
Like you cannot, I cannot.
Edit yourself?
Yeah, I can't. I'm sure some people write obviously some people write differently, but I would get to the end of the 2 pages without rereading it and going, that's stupid, that stinks, I should change that, I need to edit it, because that's where you get stuck.
Right.
And you start getting stuck on a sentence or on a concept. And so I would just write without stopping and without judging 2 pages a day, and I would not go back and read. Well, sometimes I would go back and read, but I just basically, if you do it like that, you will write a book. The book will be written.
And is it 2 pages? So like just take the rave scene.
Yeah.
Is it you start at the beginning of like you're going to do the rave scene?
Yeah.
And then is it 2 pages the next day add on to the first 2 pages, and then
yes,
add,
exactly.
Okay.
But for me, the book, like I said, each of them contains a history of each world.
Yes.
And so it was not as simple as my first book, although my first book was not simple emotionally because my first book had a lot more trauma in it, and it was a lot more difficult to I describe it as, when Wesley fell into the sands and jumped after Buttercup in The Princess Bride, that's how I felt the whole time I was writing my first book, was like in the sand of my memory, like attempting to grab things that were meaningful, but in there I felt like I was suffocating. In this world, it was, especially in the rave scene, it was really thrilling to go back and write. And I would write to old mixtapes, old mixes.
Would you really?
YouTube has all of the rave kings of my particular era, and I would write to those things, and I would do some research because
there's a lot of research in the book. I mean, that's worth pointing out. There is a ton of research that went into the book.
As KRS-One calls it, edutainment. The rave scene starts with the first rave, where Frankie Bones, the famous techno DJ from New York, was flown to London to go play at what was called at one of the outdoor parties in England that were like sort of rave famous, and he flew home. And he was already, electronic music. I know this is not exactly your sweet spot, but electronic music is an American art form. It's an American music form.
I didn't know that. When I read that in the book, I had no idea.
Not everybody that doesn't know would think that it comes from Europe because that's where it blew up. Because people in Chicago and Detroit was the home of techno. Chicago is the home of house music. And what happened was we had disco in the 70s. And Steve Dahl, one of your ilk, a
Yes.
morning DJ, he started this disco sucks movement. And he told the people in Chicago, if you bring a disco record to the White Sox doubleheader, we will literally detonate a bomb under this pile of disco records. You'll get in for free to the game. And they did that. They blew up the White Sox field. They ruined the field because they had detonated a bomb on it. And the Sox had to forfeit the second game.
Scrap that second game.
But all these people ran towards the flaming pile of disco records, chanting "Disco sucks," right? And that was marked as the moment that disco died.
Sure.
And what happened when disco died is that the kids in Chicago and Detroit grabbed those shattered remains of those disco records spiritually and started to piece them back together into this new music form, which was called techno and house. Techno in Detroit, house in Chicago. Nobody cared about it here. It wasn't popular. It was popular in inner city Detroit and Chicago, but it wasn't big. And then Europe found it. They added a little bit of drugs to the mix, and they created raves and these warehouse parties. That there were things that were similar in America, but that's where it really like took off. And so Frankie Bones goes over there and he plays this party, and he comes home and he throws this rave called the Storm Rave. It's like the first American rave, and then it spread back to Chicago. Like it had gone from Chicago to Europe, and then had some ecstasy sprinkled on top, and then got re-exported into New York, and then moved over to Chicago, and then Detroit, and then towards the West, and then finally it met me in San Francisco in 1995, just in time to change my life.
I don't even know how there's a ton of research in the book.
Yeah.
Like where you talk about that. So the process of going through and then doing the memoir is, that's what I was saying, is you have to enjoy that to do a second one.
Well, yeah, I find it so different than stand-up that's what I love about it. It's like
Do you write differently?
Yeah, well, my big skill in stand-up, what I'm best at is interacting with the crowd.
Right.
And that's like fast muscle, like twitch kind of energy. That's about like the moment, and it's about immediacy, and it's about temporariness. And like when I do a show where I'm with the crowd, they know like this is a gift a gift. I'm not like Moses or whatever. I guess Moshe means Moses, so I am anyway. But anyway, like I'm just saying, it's like it's for them that night. Like that's the beauty of crowd interaction, is like this is for you and this will never happen again. A book is the opposite. It's like it's thoughtful, it's slow, and it's permanent. It's like this is for everyone, and it is in its unadulterated form. And I loved that process, and I love the slowness of writing a book.
Right. Okay, that all makes total sense to me. Let me ask you this. I want to go to the first scene, which is AA.
Yeah.
If somebody came to you now and said, "Should I go to AA?" Is your answer yes? My
answer is definitely yes. Yeah. I mean, listen, part of the part of the process of the story that I tell is about getting sober, having AA really fundamentally and revolutionarily changed my life. It saved my life, and it's still, without question, the way that I live my life today is principles that I learned there. But I'm not in AA anymore. I'm still sober. I've been sober a long time, too long.
Too long.
But part of this is about, me reckoning with like life as an adult and the kind of slow movement that for me, that took me into other spaces and other places in my life. But if you are struggling with drugs and alcohol, I think that 12 steps are a monumentally medicinal place. It is powerful and deep medicine. I don't know that it works for every single person, but there is never a harm in finding out if it will work for you. And I would absolutely say to someone to go. It's still like, it saved my life.
Cause when I first started reading it, right. And it's the first scene. So I'm reading it, and it, like we said at the beginning, Moshe, the book starts the day that you get sober, and it walks you through you in AA, and to me the craziest. I mean, there's a lot of crazy that comes out of all the AA stuff, including your visit to Sex Addicts Anonymous.
Oh, that was a great day. Well,
go ahead.
Well, look, a lot of the book I realize only in having finished it is really it's a story of a compulsive person. I was like, everything I went into, I wanted to get high off
all
of
the
it.
way. Absolutely.
I wanted to mainline raves. I wanted to snort Burning Man. I wanted that's what it is. And I definitely had that with dating and sexuality. My rule at my peak, I'm a married man now.
Right.
My rule at my peak was if you were willing, I was game. That was it. You just had to be down. Like, there was no no's. I couldn't say no. So one night someone was like, can I come over? And I was like, yes, I didn't want her to come over, but she came over. And at a certain point, like there was some stuff going on where I was like, I just freaked out. I'm also a hypochondriac, or as it's more commonly known, a Jew. And so when she left,
this is the one with the butt marks.
Yeah, she had some butt marks. I mean, she had some things on her butt, and I decided that they were anyway, the point is, when she left, I ran to my kitchen, opened up the cabinet, and grabbed a bottle of a can of Lysol and started spraying my legs. And they say, you if you ever find yourself dousing your legs with benzodium chloride, you should probably seek help. And so I did. I was like, I'll go to a Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting. And I went in, and I was, first of all, I realized how the early members of AA must have felt telling people that they were in AA. This is the like Eminem and like Sam Malone, like it's cool to be a recovering drug addict alcoholic. This is like, people were ashamed. And I was sitting outside of this Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting, ashamed, like, I don't want anybody to see me going in there, pulling my hat down, which makes you look more like a sex addict. And so I walk into the meeting and I'm listening, and very quickly I realize, like, okay, whatever I've got is like different than what these guys have. Like, I'm like just horny, and they're talking about like, liquidating their savings account on sex workers, or like turning on porn at like 6 when they get home from work, and then all of a sudden the sun's coming up. And so I go, oh, so that was a nice perspective for me. Is like, I do have some compulsion issues. I don't exactly think I have this, but I was like feeling very grateful. But then I was like, okay, good. I I understand what I am and what to do. And then, but the problem was, in this particular meeting, or maybe in that program, people will all, they will introduce themselves. They'll say, I'm Elliot, I'm a sex addict, and I've been sober for 2 weeks. I've been sober for a year. People don't do that in AA as much. And I think, where they announce how long they've been sober. And I think it's because, my guess is, Sex Addicts Anonymous, like compulsive eaters and overeaters Anonymous, these are difficult. They're really difficult because they are addictions that you have to still engage in after you get sober. You can't.
Right. So if I'm an overeater, I'm still eating.
You have to eat, and so you have to like define your sobriety as like the amount of time it's been since you engaged in a destructive version of that behavior, which is really, I mean, imagine that's so difficult, and it's really admirable to find a way to find health within a behavior you're still engaging in.
Sure.
So I think that's why they would all announce how long they've been sober, because they needed this like reminder of like, this is how long I've been doing this, and it's possible. But a guy came into the meeting, and he came in late, and he goes, I'm so-and-so, he raised his hand right towards the end of the meeting, I'm so-and-so, I'm a sex addict, I've been sober for 30 minutes. 30 minutes. And he's sitting next to me. And I know how this meeting's going to end. It ends the way all 12-step meetings end, which is we're all going to stand up and hold hands. And his hands are still moist. And I go, oh, no. I'm not I was having such a moment of thank you, my brothers and sisters of recovery. But then I go, no, I'm not holding that dude's hand. There's no way. So the meeting ends and I beeline for the door. I tip my cat to those horny men and women, but that was one hand I would not hold. I'd forgotten my Lysol.
But going back to AA is you talk about how you jump in with both feet.
Absolutely.
And it's not you're not just going to meetings. You're an advocate, you're a sponsor, you're going to
I used to get flown around the country to speak at meetings. That's where, to be honest with you, that's where I learned how to perform in front of a crowd.
And that's the part that I love the most from that chapter is that gives birth to Moshe Kasher.
The stand-up.
The ability to stand up. And you talk about, you're not just going to, meetings. You're going to stadiums. You are traveling as the AA guy.
That is where I learned how to use language and words to elicit a laugh reaction and an emotional reaction. And there's no question. I didn't do it for that, but it was in terms of the gifts that the 12 steps bestowed upon me. It definitely set me up for my career and the thing that I love the most. That was a byproduct and one that I didn't see coming.
Right. And I love that because you look at it and you go, listen, you are a very successful and very good stand-up. Everybody knows that.
Thank you.
But do you get there? Listen, getting clean, obviously, it saved your life. You'd be dead. You know
100%.
that. But if you don't go down that road, I don't know that you end up there. You know what I mean? That is such a great moment to me in the book.
Well, that's what this book is about. This book is not about me becoming a stand-up. It's about hindsight becoming destiny. Destiny's not a concept I believe in the future tense, but it's one that I believe in the past tense. You get through, yes, without AA, I'm not this, but without all of these parts of me, I'm not me. And that's what makes these worlds that feel like they don't fit together perfectly in my body and in my life. And everybody has some version of that. And by the way, I'm not trying to sugarcoat the amount of pain that people walk through in the world. A lot of people go, that's what you call destiny, but it's not consensual. It is a life. And you look, when you get to, I guess I would say, middle age, and you start to look back and go, I had no idea that the circumstances that I was walking through were leading me here. And it's not, is it always these circumstances are perfect? Of course not. But it's always, when you look back, you start to see this pattern emerging that felt chaotic. It felt my friend and Pete and I call it a spiritual plinko. Right. You don't know that the chant, you go to a rave one night and then all of a sudden now your life is here. Or you don't know, you go to Burning Man one year and you spend 15 years there working and you don't know what things are creating your future and your destiny without all of these things. The only reason I do stand up also, I got this thing from AA, this gift of rhetoric and being able to make people laugh. But, I went to, I was in a semester abroad in Israel, and I probably went there because I was Jewish, and that got cut short because there was once again a terrible thing happening, and I went to New York on vacation. Because the school had been canceled, so I went to New York, and I just was like, I don't have anything to do. Let me go to New York, and I happened to look up an old friend who was doing stand up in New York, and she goes, I'm doing stand up. I go, what does that mean? What's stand up? And she says, well, just come look. And I go to this show, and I never thought about stand up before. I've been writing long form monologues and plays and studying acting, but I never thought about stand up. And so I go to a show with her, and I see Sarah Silverman and Patrice O'Neill perform, and I go, who are these? What is this? And they're talking, their comedy was so, I remember Patrice was making fun of Michael J. Fox. And I go, what are you doing? Like, you're not allowed. That feels illegal. You should do that. And then the next night she was performing, my friend, and she was funny. And I go, whoa, like she's funny. And these two kings of comedy are funny. And like, what's happening? I go, I'll write 5 minutes of material. And will you take me to an open mic when you come to the Bay Area? And so she does, and I do, and we go to an open mic, and all of a sudden, boom, my destiny is set. Like I never thought about stand-up before. And so then I become a stand-up, and it's my whole life. It's how I pay the bills. And then I meet my wife in the stand-up world, and now I'm married, and then we have a child. And now the most important thing in my life is as a chance result of this sort of bizarre spiritual plinko of me just being, world circumstances, and me going to this school, and me keeping in touch with this friend, and me going to this show. And now I'm like in Los Angeles with my daughter who's turning 6 next week, and I've got this wife that I love, and this life that is cool, and this book that I wrote. It's all like destiny, but I couldn't have seen it at the time.
No way. And I can't remember exactly what it is in the book, but you talk about like everybody has their path or their road, but it's I'm going to mess it up, but it's like, it's not a straight line. It is like a pinball's path.
That's right.
In a machine. Yeah. And I read that, I was like, that, you couldn't be more right. And listen, not everybody has the life experiences that you do. Thank God.
Well, no, I have an unusual pinball game.
Yes.
This is quite a game, but everybody's got their game.
Sure. Yeah, no. And that's what I mean. It may feel, my life is nothing like that, but you still feel like it's not a straight line. It doesn't go that way.
And we all have these universes that create who we are. And like, I think maybe less and less, I don't know, maybe more and more the internet has become like, a thoroughfare as opposed to a Plinko game. It's more of a like, this is the path, like you go, what is life? And then you just reach in your pocket, open up TikTok, you go, oh, that is life, and so this book also in some ways is like it's like a love letter to the randomness that life used to be like. If you were, if your dad bought you a skateboard in the 90s and you took to it, like chances are you'd be writing graffiti and smoking blunts under a freeway overpass. And if you like Tolkien and Beetlejuice, chances are you'd be doing a bloodletting ceremony in a field with your fellow goths. Like it used to feel more random, like, and life was an adventure that sort of unfurled itself to you accidentally. And this isn't me like shaking my fists at the internet. It's more like an archaeological artifact that I'm leaving to my kid. This is what life felt like for me.
Can I ask you a question? If you don't want to answer because it's about your kid.
Yeah.
She's
6 feet tall. It's unusual.
At 6.
Yeah, at 6. A foot a year. Yeah, I knew where you were going with this.
Do you get scared about any of your addictions being passed down?
Oh my God, yes.
You do?
Oh yeah. But I can answer that like this. Like, she's wild and I was wild and she's me. Like, there's no question. Like, I'm like, okay, I got what I, karmically paid for here. But like, in the same way that looking back, you see the Plinko, that I'm not me without this insane set of circumstances that led to me falling into trouble in the first place.
Right.
Like, it's not just wildness that creates a derelict child. It's also, for me, because my brother had the same set of circumstances and was a straight A student and everything, it just wasn't like that for him. But for me, it was about this feeling of like aloneness and deaf parents, and my dad's super religious and my mom's not. And I go 6 weeks a year into this community that rejects me, and I feel half deaf and half hearing, and I'm in Oakland Public Schools, one of the few white kids. And just this set of circumstances created a field in which by the time I found drugs and alcohol and the other like sort of broken toys at the back of the school, I found like, medicine and freedom in finding these other broken toys,
Right.
So my job for my kid is not to go, don't be like that. It's to go, let me offer you a different set of circumstances leading into what is going to be your wild life. I know who she is. I know that she's a spark plug of a person, and I'm there to like provide like stability and love and a verdant field for that kind of firecracker life to explode into something positive.
And she did a nice job polishing your Emmy Award.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. My job is to get her to polish the Emmy and make sure she understands what's most important in the world, which is Hollywood.
Will this be turned into Have you been approached to turn this into a series?
We may do that.
Right.
I would like to do that.
The first one was close, right?
First one got very, very close to, I think, we were at Showtime, and I don't even know if Showtime exists anymore. They say in Hollywood, everybody's making their second favorite script. Like their passion, your passion project is usually not the one. But this would be, I think, a really cool show. You know, I love the idea of like a euphoria, but it's moving in a positive direction.
Right.
Because that's what this is. Like my Plinko journey was one towards health and healing as opposed to towards my own destruction. Like I think that's, you know, if you had an arc of the two books, book Kasher and the Rye was really about like a road to perdition, and Subculture Vulture is really about the road to freedom and finding what the world has for you.
Were you really diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder?
Yes.
Were you really?
Yeah.
I knew
conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder. These are bad things.
I was going to say, I met somebody who had a son who had that. And maybe I'd read it somewhere or heard of it.
Yeah.
But definitely didn't know anybody who had it, or in this case, didn't know a parent of a kid who had it. Dude, that's hardcore.
Well, you know, you start to feel when you hear these things about yourself like they are self-fulfilling prophecies, and you start to believe this stuff. And then the next time you get diagnosed, you're diagnosed with a little bit more severity because the energy that you bring to the diagnostic technician is one of more opposition and defiance. And I started to feel like fully defined by these labels that were put on me. I mean, listen, I'm sure that there are bad seeds. I don't really know, but I felt like I never had a chance of not being a bad seed because from my earliest memory, I started going to therapy when I was, I think, 4.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the time I was 15, like I started to believe these things. You know, I started to believe them about me. And so all of these worlds that I lived in were about not just freedom, but about rejecting these labels that had been put on me and realizing like who I actually was. And I think that's what the story of the book is too, is like finding out who you really are and who your people are.
Right.
And your people can help you reject those labels too.
And you may be the only person, Moshe, that I know that has taken Burning Man and the burning of Burning Man and been able to tie it into the high holy holidays of being a Jew.
Well, listen, Burning Man this last year was 24 years that I've been going to Burning Man. I went for the first time in 1996. I was 16 years old. And over the time, like you said, like each of these worlds, they start to like, the magic starts to wear off.
Right.
And so with Burning Man, like it's fused into the rhythm of my life in such a way that like in the high holidays in the Jewish religion, you do this thing where every year you take stock of yourself and you say, you know, where did I go wrong this year? How do I want to improve myself in the year to come? That's at the beginning, that's Rosh Hashanah. And then on Yom Kippur, you like fast and you cleanse yourself of those things. I mean, is it literally cleansing? I mean, some people think literally it's God up there going like, you made it, and then sealing you in the book. I don't really believe that, but I like the ritual of every year going like, how do I want to improve myself in the year to come? And so now I've tacked Burning Man onto that because Burning Man is always about the same time as the high holidays. And if the actual burning of the man means anything to me, 24 years in, it's a reminder of the temporariness of life, that we're all a man about to catch fire. Every one of us is temporary. We are going nowhere but gone. And so every year I begin that process of self-reflection by saying I am temporary and I'm not going to be here forever. And what do I want to do in my life? What do I want to experience? How much do I want to live in the year to come? It's going away, and I want to make sure that while I'm here, I experience as much of it in as much of a positive way as I possibly can.
Yeah, by the way, would I like Burning Man? That's another one. I've never been to a rave. I've never been to Burning Man.
Would you like Burning Man? I don't know you that well. I'm going to go ahead and say almost everybody would like Burning Man for 12 hours. After the 12-hour mark, you go, okay, I'm dirty. Now I'm dirty. And I need something more. But I don't know if you'd like. I think you'd like it. Yeah.
As I'm sure you've seen it change a million times in 24 years.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's changed so significantly. The first year I went, it was legit. I just heard it was a rave in the desert, and I was like, "Cool, let's go." 6 hours.
Is that how
drive.
you ended up there?
That was the only. Somebody said rave in the desert, and I go, "Okay,
all right,
pack
sweet.
up the car,
Here we
let's go."
I'm the rave king.
Yeah, me and a bunch of other scumbags jumped into a 91 Ford Escort and drove 6 hours into the desert, and it was small and it was dangerous. People were dead. People died before the event even started. Somebody was dead. I had friends that were run over because you could drive at like 60 miles an hour on like open playa with thousands of people there. There weren't enough porta potties, so it was just like hippie and raver and techno punk poo poo littering the desert. And there were drive-by shooting ranges where you could drive by in your car and like shoot at a building. They were lighting things on fire on like national park land. Like it was crazy and scary and wild, and it's not as crazy and scary and wild as it once was, but it's still kind of this thing that the way I describe it is like it's like reality through the looking glass, and these kind of experiments in immediacy that are just for their like experiences for their own sake. Like there was one night we were out there, and there are big things, buildings get set on fire, 4-story statues of a woman like with flaming propane eyes, and like there are big things, but there are these like tiny things. Like I once was walking through the desert with a bunch of friends at like 4:00 in the morning. We saw like a pale blue light like a quarter mile out, and we were way out in the desert where nobody is, not in the main drag, and we go, oh, there's a light. Like, well, might as well go see what that is. And we walk for like 20 minutes, and we get out there, and there's just a lone man with a pale blue light, and he's set up a little teeny marionette stage, and he's doing a marionette performance for nobody in the coldness of the desert. He's just doing this performance for whoever happened to walk by. Like that was for me, and that little random ridiculousness. That's a part of the Plinko. That's these little moments of wonder are the thing that keeps me going back. Because I hear you talk about that, and then I think of like the president of iHeart goes every year in like one of his like $1 million RVs. Right. And I think it doesn't sound like that's not like that would be no fun. Now, I don't know if I want to, like watch people get run over either. That I have no interest in. But like I see him go and I go, that's probably not for me. Well, it's become a thing. I don't want you to talk about the president of iHeart like that. He seems like a great guy. It's become a thing where the best quote I heard is it went from a place where weird people go to feel normal to a place where normal people go to feel weird. And it is that, Silicon Valley. Everybody talks about how Silicon Valley has ruined Burning Man, but the truth is Silicon Valley was always there. There were always tech people there. Tech used to be a subculture of its own. Tech used to be like a counterculture. It used to be Angelina Jolie and hackers and like mohawked punk, techno punks and like Silicon Valley. It didn't ruin Burning Man. Silicon Valley itself got ruined, and then they just kept going. Yeah. So yeah, there are like company retreats at Burning Man that occur, but it's still the most weird and left field experience of reality that I have all year long. Like it's still weird enough that it keeps me going back. There's still moments of beauty there that you cannot see anywhere else. All right, last couple of things and then I'll let you jump. Number one, funniest thing in the book is, and I don't want to give it away, but the way you describe the Mona Lisa is absolutely fantastic. Oh, thank you very much. You mentioned the wife. How is she? She's great. She's at home right now, resenting me for being on the road, and I will. I'm going to see her this weekend. Yeah, no, good. Excellent. Please tell her we said hello. I will indeed. And then the last thing is, have you ever taken a human life or had sex with an animal? You got me. I'm sorry. Coughing is bad for radio. Moshe, I can't thank you enough. Wait, hold on. Okay. I'm not going to let you. Okay. That deserves context, and it's a question that my first sponsor asked me when we went through our fourth step. At the end of it, he looked at me with great graveness, and he said, "I need to ask you 2 more questions. Have you ever taken human life or had sex with an animal?" And the answer, thank God, to this day, throughout multiple rounds of spiritual plinko, through the worlds of AA, Judaism, interpretation and deafness, stand-up comedy, raves, and Burning Man, to this day, the answer is still a happy, enthusiastic no. No, I have not. No. Neither of those things.
Subculture Vulture is out now. Moshe Kasher will be at 6th and I tonight in conversation about the book. Dude, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And this book, I poured so much of myself into it. I cannot wait for people to listen,
so good.
read it, and experience
so
it.
good.
And come to 6 and I tonight. You can hear more about it.
Absolutely. Moshe, thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.